supporting role. Christmas in a supporting role. In today's text, we have a very popular man. Last week we talked about John the Baptist as well. We came out of the Gospel of Mark last week, but it was the story of John the Baptist. And do you remember who it said came out to see him? Who can remember that? Pharisees did come out to see him. Who else? George, can you just hit mute on that? Mute button there. You can't hear it, but there's a speaker right here that I'm hearing that Christmas music. Thanks. Who came out to see him? What did Mark say? Don't try to make me quote it. Actually, it says, all of the people of Jerusalem in the area of Judea, they all came out. Now, that might be hyperbole. That might be a little bit a overstatement to make a point. But the point is that crowds and crowds of people came out to see John the Baptist. He was very popular. He was speaking a message that was speaking to hearts and minds of people, and crowds were coming out. In today's text, we hear how hard John tried to diminish himself. Tried to show that he simply was fulfilling a supporting role. That he was not the man. He was not the light. John's Gospel opens up and talks about the light coming into the world. And it says that John the Baptist came to testify to that light. That he himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. And then he says, when asked, are you the Messiah? What does he say? No, I'm not the Messiah. I'm not Elijah. I'm not the prophet. And it's not a prophet, it's the prophet. They thought that a prophet like Moses would come back. As a matter of fact, Jesus fulfilled that role as well as Messiah. He was the prophet and the Messiah as well. But John the Baptist says, no, I am not the one. He spends a lot of time talking about the fact that he is second fiddle. That he's unworthy to untie the thongs, to loosen the thongs of the sandals of the one who's to come. Playing a supporting role in the will of God that was being revealed, that was unfolding right there in that time and place for those in Jerusalem. Everything that John says in this text plays down who he is and plays up who Jesus was going to be. As I read this text, and you know, I think it's really unfair of the lectionary to use John the Baptist out of Mark and then the next week use John the Baptist out of John. That really hurts preachers, you know. How many things can you say about John the Baptist? But as I read that and began to struggle with what's the message that comes out of this for me? What's the message that I can hear in this retelling once again of John the Baptist preparing the way of the Lord that I can bring to the church? And as I thought about it, I began to think about how much John lowered himself and realized that he was only acting in a supporting role. And I thought about Christmas. And I thought about, you know what? Christmas is supposed to be in a supporting role to the gospel of Jesus Christ. But what have we made that in America? What have we made, probably across the world, I can only speak to my own backyard, but what have we made that in America? How many of you thought that I had a Christmas tie on this morning when you saw this? What it is a bunch of brightly colored packages with little mice sitting on them with cute little red Santa hats. Anyway, you know, you would call this a Christmas tie, wouldn't you? Yeah. But there's nothing about Christ in this tie. There's nothing about the gospel message. We think of Christmas as an end to itself. And yet it's supposed to only be playing a supporting role in the gospel message of Jesus Christ. How important have we made Christmas? Has it become more than it's supposed to be in our lives? Have we given too much time to the secular kind of worship of Christmas and not enough time to what Christmas is really all about? It is a time that we reconnect with friends and families, and there's nothing wrong with that, certainly. There's nothing wrong with connecting with our loved ones. If Christianity is about nothing, it is about relationships. I mean, we know that Jesus said the greatest commandment was to love the Lord your God It's about relationship. It's about love. So there's nothing wrong with that, but we spend so much time. Christmas letters and dinner parties, our calendars are crowded with events. We certainly have to make enough time for all that shopping if we're going to spend $450 billion in America on Christmas gifts. It certainly takes a lot of our time to do that shopping. You know what that breaks down to? I saw another slide somewhere. That breaks down to $900 a family. If the census statistics are accurate as to how many people there are and how many families in America. $900 a family, $450 billion on Christmas gifts a year. My fear is that we're forgetting that Christmas is not what holds the supreme importance of this time of year, but it only holds a supporting role. It reminds us who God is through Jesus Christ. We learned last week in the children's message, let's see if we learned it, that Emmanuel means
God with us.
we have some confusion. Emmanuel means God with us. And Jesus means God saves, right? That's the meaning of Christmas. Jesus, God with us, and God saves. Christmas is celebrated in secular sense by millions of people. Millions of people who have no relationship with Jesus Christ whatsoever. I'm sure of it. And I'm not talking about people sitting here in the pews today. That's not what I mean. But there are people who wear these kinds of ties and wear Santa hats and have a wonderful time partying and drinking and carrying on that do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ. Christmas to them is not about the Christ child. They celebrate the decorations on their houses and trees. They celebrate commercialism and consumerism. They celebrate Santa Claus and snowmen. They celebrate gift giving, but not for the reason that we give gifts, and overeating. Perhaps for the reason we overeat. Christmas for them is not a time of receiving the one whose birth it announces. And it's sad. It's a sad thing. It's not a quiet time of reflection on the meaning of God with us. It is not a time of remembering that God sent His own Son to bring peace, the shalom, wholeness, and healing into a world that rebelled against Him. Again, I think we heard that in the children's message this morning, talking about how God chose each and every one of us to be in relationship with us, even while we